Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, we can hear you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tatati Swapatikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Sajivam Advaitam Sarvabhutam Parishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vikamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagarpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome, welcome. Hare Krishna. So does anyone have any, before we begin with the second half of verse number 3, does anyone have any questions from last week? Or from the reading this week? And let's see. Okay. Anyone? No? Okay, well, in that case, we can continue with the purport that we were studying. We'll finish verse number 3 today, and then go on to 4 for next week. So if you recall, the first verse in Upadekshamrita, it was talking about the importance of controlling one's senses in order to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, and also talked about the if we do have some challenge, some problem in Krishna consciousness, some fall down, we don't have to perform any prayaschitta, but we need to just re-engage in bhakti, re-engage in devotional service. And then in the second verse, we heard about the 6 things that hurt our bhakti, that are pratikul, unfavorable for our devotional service. Atyahara, prayashascha, prajalpa, niyamagraha, etc. And now, in this verse, we're hearing about the 6 things that are anukul, that are favorable. And we covered 4 of them last week. But I'm going to continue the purport from where Prabhupada says, furthermore, in order to be successful in devotional service, one must give up the association of undesirable people. This includes karmis, gyanis, yogis, and other non-devotees. Once, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked by one of his householder devotees about the general principles of Vaishnavism, as well as the general routine activities of a Vaishnava. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately replied, Asat Sangatyag E Vaishnav Achar. Characteristically, a Vaishnava is one who gives up the association of worldly people or non-devotees. Srila Narottama Das Thakur has therefore recommended, so this is that was the negative, and this is the positive. Tandara Sharana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas. One has to live in the company of pure devotees and execute the regulated principles laid down by the previous acharyas, the 6 Goswamis. If one lives in the association of devotees, there is very little chance of associating with non-devotees. ISKCON is opening many centers just to invite people to live in the company of devotees and practice the regulated principles of spiritual life. So we've talked about this already. Many of you had questions about this because many of us have jobs in the outside world. We're connected with people in the outside world. And so the question has been coming up again and again, is how do we still practice this principle in the modern context, and especially as householders living in the congregation? And I think we answered this already, but one way is that we don't give our heart, we don't open up our hearts fully to everyone. We open our hearts to devotees, and that we'll talk about in the next verse. I think we even mentioned this last week, right? These 6 exchanges of love between devotees. So yes, we may have to associate. Not everyone is like, a demon with horns coming out of their head or something like that. I think, sometimes you may know some good people who are not necessarily Krishna devotees, and their association doesn't degrade us. I think we know people who are really affect our consciousness and those that don't affect so much. And then, of course, the association of devotees, which is so powerful in helping us in our Krishna consciousness. And therefore, Narottama Das, he says, Tandara Charana Sevi Bhakti Sanivas. My only desire is to live in the association of devotees. And then Prabhupada says, remember in the time when Prabhupada was with us, practically speaking, everyone lived in the temple. I mean, we had some life members, we did some life membership, but even then we didn't usually call them devotees. But really, to be a devotee, you had to live in the ashram, basically. That was the emphasis. And so you can see here in this purport, Prabhupada is saying, so one can live in the association of devotees, then there's little chance of associating with non-devotees, right? Because we would get up in the morning, we would go to the morning program, we would take prasadam together, we'd go to our services, maybe we would go out and make life members or distribute books, and we would do that in the association of devotees. We'd come back to the temple, take prasadam, go to see the deities again, take rest, repeat again and again, like that. So that was our life. Now things are a little more complicated, right? And so then the question is, how do we practice this principle even in a different situation? And that is, of course, one of the challenges of our life right now in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But it does mean that we try to take rest at a reasonable hour so that we can get up early and we can have a strong sadhana in the morning before going off and doing our various duties. And we get that real injection of Krishna consciousness in the morning. And then we come home again, maybe we take bath, we take some prasadam, and we open up a Bhagavad Gita, or we do some study or some kirtan. And again, we try to make it a ISKCON sandwich of hearing and chanting morning and evening. Now, I know, sometimes that's easier and sometimes that's harder, depending on the kind of work we do, how long our commute is, and all such things. But that is how we try as best as we can to fulfill this instruction of Srila Prabhupada's. So some questions or comments on these points about association and not living in a temple, living in a temple, and so on.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Myself, Murari Madhavdas. Prabhu, if the own relatives, close blood relatives, if they are non-devotees, and if somebody raised, or if somebody is there in the non-devotee family, so it means that 24 hours almost one has to spend with the non-devotees. Like, how to deal with this special case, Prabhu?
Well, that's a challenge, and we try to negotiate something. I think I gave the example last week of Srila Prabhupada's sister, whose husband was not a devotee, and she would cook fish for him, and then she would take bath, put on new clothing, get a different set of pots, and then cook for Krishna and offer that as prasadam, and then take prasadam. So she obviously negotiated some kind of understanding with her husband. So hopefully we can sit down very peacefully and talk about our interests, talk about their interests, and see if there's a way that we can peacefully coexist and try to, fill each other's needs, and hopefully by being a good example and being good association, the other partner the spouse will start becoming more and more attracted to Krishna consciousness. So that would be the hope. But at least hopefully we can sit down and have a conversation and say, listen, I really need to, whatever it is, chant my japa in the morning, or I really need to find time to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, or I really need to make sure that I'm always taking prasadam, whatever it is. And then we try to negotiate as best we can. The material world's an entangling place, and there's all kinds of difficult situations. I think I mentioned last week that especially in China, I find this problem a lot with devotees. Many Chinese devotees, their spouse is not a devotee, and it's a challenging situation. And if we are married to someone who is a devotee, we should really thank Krishna for that and be very good to our husband or to our wife, knowing that Krishna has been very kind to us to give us a spouse who is interested, has the same spiritual aspirations as us. So we should really count our blessings if that's the case. And if it's not the case, then we also count our blessings. But we just try to do the best we can. Is that all right, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
All right. And Varda Kripamaya Prabhu. What amount of risk can we take in staying with non-devotees? Where to draw the line? We take the risk as we need money for spreading Krishna consciousness as well.
5545.
Well, I mean, the most important thing, of course, in life is to make spiritual advancement. So we should try to make that our priority, and see how we can actually see. Am I still chanting good rounds, and am I still only taking prasadam, and I still finding time to read Prabhupada's books, or am I becoming more weak? Am I losing my Krishna consciousness in this situation? And if so, what can I do to improve it? We have to be practical. That's I was just learning this word today. I didn't know it's a Greek word. Let me see if I can put it in the chat. Akrasia. It's a Greek word, and it says it's a state of mind in which someone acts against their better judgment through weakness of will. So I'm sure we've all had experiences sometimes. We know we should do something, or we know we shouldn't do something, and we do it anyway. And that is akrasia in Latin, or maybe it is Latin. So that is also, or in Sanskrit, it's called hridaya durabhalyam, weakness of heart. So we know we should do something, but we don't do it. We know we shouldn't do something and we do it. Even though we know we shouldn't. That is our weakness of heart. So we have to gauge, are we becoming weak? Are we remaining strong in our Krishna consciousness? Isn't it a challenge? Everyone's asking these kind of questions, week after week, and it's because it is a challenge. The material world is a difficult place. And it's not like when I was living in the ashram and with brahmachari, it's not that everything was just wonderful. There was challenges there also, because it's the material world. There's challenges. I mean, there was lots of freedom. I could fit all of my possessions in a box this big. 2 dhotis, 2 kurtas, bead bag, sleeping bag, book bag, bus. So no money, no worry about money, no possessions, 2 dhotis, 2 kurtas, that's it. Oh yeah. Very, very nice life. But even then there was problems, the person in the room that you're sharing the room with snores all night long, or whatever. There's always problems in the material world. There's always problems in the material world. Anything else? Okay, so let's continue with this purport. I'm just going to go, because we actually have time in today to finish this purport, slowly. So then Prabhupada says, devotional service means transcendental activities. So we've talked about this. It's activities. It's being active, but for Krishna's pleasure. On the transcendental platform, there is no contamination by the 3 modes of material nature. This is called Vishuddha Sattva, the platform of pure goodness, or goodness freed from the contamination by the qualities of passion and ignorance. So then Prabhupada talks about living in a temple. In this Krishna consciousness movement, we require everyone. So he requires everyone, but we're living outside, right? We can't necessarily do this. To rise early in the morning, we can do that. By 4 o'clock, well, good luck. I hope you can do that. And attend Mangala Arti, or morning worship, then read Srimad Bhagavatam, perform Kirtana, and so forth. Thus, we hold continuous activities in devotional service 24 hours daily. This is called Sato Brite, or following the footsteps of the previous acharyas, who expertly filled every moment of time with Krishna conscious activities. So we're certainly not on the level of this Goswamis, but we can try to get into the habit, try to arrange our day in such a way that a good portion of it is spent in what's called Swarup Siddhi Bhakti, or direct remembrance of Krishna by hearing, by chanting, etc. But you can see again, this purport was written when everyone, practically speaking, lived in the temple. So how do we do this when we're living outside the temple? You could put in the chat, how do you do this? If you're not living, I think maybe there are some brahmacharis on the call here, that's fine. But how do you do this if you're living outside? How do you follow the principles that Prabhupada is talking here? It's a practical question. Maybe you could put it in the chat what you do. I'd like to get inspired by what you do. Or you can go off mute and just say it. Try to be in association, Achyuta Pataravinda Prabhu says, or maybe it's Apara something Devidasi. Okay, so try to be in good association. What else? If not able to make to temple, listen to Prabhupada lectures daily. Very nice, Navadip Sachi Mataji. Yeah. Plan your activities before the day. This is good practical advice. Give quality time to Krishna in the morning. Yeah, Yeah, let me see if I, 1 second. Oh, well, more people are typing. I'm going to look for something. Okay, should we, let's see. Make your home a temple and always connected to Prabhupada through hearing, reading, be in association. Very nice. Yes. Navadvip Sachi Mataji, try not to waste time in mundane activities. Sometimes we are unaware of how we really spend our time. Yes, very, very good point. We, yeah, especially if we happen to turn on the internet or go on our phone and then we look at this, then we look at that, then we look at this, then we look at that. And, when I told you this already, when I moved to India in the 80s, there was like 2 televisions in all of Vrindavan. And when the Mahabharata came on, like there's like 400 people crowded around a television this big. And now everyone has a smartphone with all kinds of Maya you can get into and all kinds of interesting things. Make your home, okay. Through hearing and chanting and speaking to devotees, try to engage even kids with us. Example, bedtime stories can be Gita stories. Yes, there's now in ISKCON, there's many good children's books and coloring books and things you can do with your children. This may seem very regimental, but I try to finish chanting, reading, and listening by 10 a.m. every day. That's not regimental. That's good. That is very good. We take Krishna Prasadam, rise early, and chant. Take care of Tulsi Maharani. Spend as much time as possible in temple service. Mangalarti at home. Well, you are all very advanced devotees. Deity seva, chanting, Tulsi Arti, book reading with family, engaging children. You are amazing. So I was going to, there's this one, try not to waste time in mundane activities. Sometimes we're unaware. Plan your activities before the day. Give quality time to Krishna. So I'm going to make an experiment. I'm going to show you a video about time management that we can apply in Krishna consciousness. I haven't seen it, so I hope I know the concept, but I haven't seen this video, so hopefully it'll be well done. And 1 second, I have to wait, there's share screen, optimize for video clip. Yes, okay. And let's see, which one should we, this one is the best one, but it's 10 minutes long, so we're not gonna do that. This one is 4 minutes, so let's try this one.
Getting distracted by little things in life is easy. By starting your day with trivial activities, you will not have the time for the things that actually matter. Whether you are a businessman, mother of 4, or a professional, anyone can lose focus of the things that are important in life and fill precious time with meaningless things. In the 80s, Stephen Covey taught the importance of prioritizing the important things in life, which will enable you to do more than you ever thought was possible. His concepts still apply to life today. Even if you think you know all of this already, the visualization metaphor really hits home. This demonstration from the 7 habits of highly effective people will change how you prioritize. If you lack focus and want to do more important things in your day, you have to check out this life-changing video.
Whoops, just 1 second. Wait. Put that on pause. I just, okay. Sorry. So the jar is, you have to look at the instructions at the bottom of the page as he's doing this, okay? The jar represents all of our time, and the sand and the pebbles, are small things in our life, and the rocks are the big things like chanting or reading Prabhupada's books like that, okay? So let me go back and share the screen again. Share screen, where are we? Oh, I guess I can do, oh, here we go. All right. So you see the sand is the phone calls, emails, constant pings on your social media, all that is like sand, okay? And the pebbles are tasks which will have some importance if we don't do them. Not huge, but some importance if we don't do them. And the rocks are the really important things. But there's a lot of rocks. There's a lot of rocks that couldn't fit in. And even those are just kind of crowded at the top. Oops. Now, if you put the rocks in first, you can fit them all in. So all the rocks are fit in. Then you can add the pebbles, which are like the urgent things. So you see all the big rocks are in. Then you can kind of add the urgent things. You have to, you know, go fix your car or this or that. And then there's the little things. The sand is the little things. And you see, so you see everything fit in. I think you get the idea, right? So for us, that means if we make sure we have a time scheduled for reading Prabhupada's books, a time scheduled for our japa, a time maybe to spend time with our family members, a time to, you know, kirtan, and then, you know, all the other things in life can fit in. Of course, if we have an outside job, that's a rock also in itself, right? You can't just tell your boss, no, I'm going to go chant extra japa, right? But that might be another rock. But the idea is there are a lot of distractions in this world, especially social media. I don't use social media at all because I just don't have time in my life to waste on that. I mean, there's some good things you can do with social media, some good preaching and things like that, but a lot of it can be a waste of time. So I try to be careful to make sure that I get the most important things are the most important things, because it's very easy to neglect some of the most important things. So when I saw that comment by Vrajeshwari Prabhu Mataji, plan your activities before a day, give quality time to Krishna in the morning, I thought of this example from The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I hope that was interesting. I know you don't usually hear that in a Shastra class, but Davadeep Sachi Mataji, I also find keeping track of my sadhana on a spreadsheet has really helped. Once I thought I was pretty disciplined and stopped tracking my sadhana, and slowly everything simply fell apart. I mean, I lost the discipline because I was no longer tracking it. So yes, we have, maybe some of you are familiar with the app, Be a Sage. It's a free app. And you can keep track of how much reading you do. So let's say if you want to read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in 1 year, it'll calculate how many here. So it says if you want to read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in 1 year, you have to read 41 pages a day. So it's a free app put together by Vraj Vihari Prabhu. And you can keep track of, so yes, Vraj Vihari Prabhu has that saying, what is it? Something about when you pay a lot of attention to things that you can measure. So yes, we can if we like spreadsheets, like obviously Navadip Sachi Mataji loves spreadsheets, then we can do that. Let's see. Ratika Mataji, we need to do sadhana properly and pray to deities and Guru Maharaj and ask devotees to pray for each other, and it works. I am blessed to be in temple by devotees' mercy. And Sumendra Sridhar Sankapani says, pray to the deities for empowerment just before winding up the day. Yes. Very good. Okay, so those are some ideas. So in other words, we can still be Krishna conscious even if we're living a householder life outside. Okay, we can do it. You all can do it. You're doing it well, and you can even do it better. So let's continue. If one strictly follows the advice given in this verse by Srila Rupa Goswami, namely being enthusiastic, being confident, being patient, giving up the association of unwanted persons, following the regulated principles, and remaining in the association of devotees, one is sure to advance in devotional service. In this regard, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that the cultivation of knowledge by philosophical speculation, so that's gyan, not bhakti, that's gyan, and it's knowledge not like of Krishna, but knowledge that we're not this body, but also sometimes impersonal knowledge, or the collection of mundane opulence by the advancement of fruitive activities. And the desire, fruitive activities is a fancy word for, karma, or being a karmi, being after material enjoyment. And the desire of yoga siddhis, material perfections, those are all contrary to the practice of the principles of devotional service. And then listen to this, one has to become thoroughly callous to such non-permanent activities and turn his intention instead to the regulated principles of devotional service. Can someone please Google the word callous and put the definition in the chat? The word, because it's a very powerful word. One has to become thoroughly callous. So in this regards, it's maybe helpful for us to understand this by understanding the difference between, oops, somebody just went off of mute. The difference between viraktir and vairagya, two Sanskrit words. So vairagya is when we try to keep our senses away from sense objects and we kind of reject sense gratification. By the way, thank you very much for the definition here. There's two of them, Achyuta Pardaravinda Prabhu. being hardened and thickened, having callous hands, feeling no emotion, feeling or showing no sympathy for others, hard-hearted. And Prabhupada says we should be, what did he say? We should be callous, thoroughly callous to such non-permanent activities, and instead turn our attention to devotional service. So we don't want to be callous to everything. We want to open our hearts wide to devotional service, but be callous to temporary activities. So I was starting to explain these two words, vairagya and viraktir. So vairagya is when you try to keep, you're still a little attracted, but you keep your senses away from the sense objects. Viraktir is a higher consciousness. It's when by Krishna's mercy, the word that is usually used in English is indifferent. You're just not interested anymore in material pursuit, material sense gratification. So in vairagya is lower, you're trying to keep away from it. And viraktir is just like, it doesn't make sense. Did I tell you the story about when I used to travel second class on the trains in India? So when I moved to India in 1989, and I would usually, if I was going to Mayapur or going to Mumbai, I would take the train, and usually, not third class, but second class, and so you know what it's like on those trains. People are having their rotis and talking, all nonstop. And it's in Hindi generally. It's in Hindi. And when I first moved to India, I didn't understand anything in Hindi, like nothing, except kitna paisa, something like that, subteek, so it was just like, so when they were talking, it didn't make any sense to me, right? People do, it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So it didn't bother me because I didn't understand what they were saying. It was kind of like white noise, right? So viraktir is like that. It just, like sense gratification just doesn't make any sense when we're on the level of viraktir. So to be, and that is when we're really developing our love for Krishna, and that comes as a gift from Krishna. So here when Prabhupada says one has to be thoroughly callous, that really means viraktir, means we're just indifferent to sense gratification. And that is proportionate to how much we've developed our bhakti, like that. Okay. So any thoughts on that about being callous to material things and absorbed in bhakti?
Prabhuji, I have a doubt here. Can we become so indifferent that we're also not able to relate and connect to others?
Mm-hmm. Well, indifferent doesn't mean not being able to communicate. The indifference is specifically about sense gratification, but we can still have very warm communications with people, and but when someone who's not a devotee, they meet somebody, they're thinking how to exploit them, either can they help my business or whatever, in one way or another, trying to get something out of them, where a devotee doesn't want anything from somebody. They just want to give people Krishna consciousness. So the indifference is just in terms of us seeing the material world as a place for our enjoyment. One can still be totally in the world and involved in the world and still be viraktir, still be indifferent. Arjuna was, fighting, he was on a battlefield, and he had to be very conscious of what was going on. So yes, it doesn't mean, it's a great question, Mataji, because it doesn't mean going to the forest, because that's what Arjuna wanted to do, right? We're going to be studying the Gita in a little while. Arjuna wanted to say, Krishna, I'm out of here. I don't want to kill Bhishma. I don't want to fight with, my guru, Dronacharya. I'm going to the forest. And Krishna said, no, you're not. You stay in the world, but just change your consciousness. Is that all right, Mataji? Okay. Anything else on this point?
Prabhuji, I'd like to know if Vairagya is the first step to Virakti.
Yeah, yes. I mean, and I thank you for bringing that up, Rasa Sindhu Giridhari Prabhu. Is that your full name?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. Because sometimes, if you look in Prabhupada's books, the Bhagavatam, sometimes Vairagya is almost the same as Viraktir, I mean, the way it's discussed, but I'm making that distinction in order to, make a point. So your question was, could you repeat your question again, Prabhu?
Is Vairagya the first step towards Virakti?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And we study in the second chapter of the Gita, the tortoise, right? That the tortoise, the Stita Pragya, the wise person, the very fixed up person, when sense gratification comes his or her way, just like a tortoise brings its limbs within the shell, we bring our senses back inside. And I remember seeing this a lot when you go to Radhakund, there's tortoises, right? And if you just agitate the water a little bit, they immediately goes inside. So there's a real Bhagavad Gita lesson right there at Radhakund. So yes, in the beginning, we shouldn't think, oh, I am so Viraktir, I can go into the den of Maya, I can go with 50 women or 50 men, of whatever it is, and I won't be affected at all. No, that's that is tempting Maya. We should be humble and therefore careful. That makes sense, Rasa Sindhu Prabhu?
Yeah, sure, Prabhu.
Because you may be on that platform.
No. Very difficult, Prabhu. So, Prabhu, continuing on the same thing, so if Vairagya is trying to control our senses, many times like the example of, the tortoise withdrawing its senses inside, we might make an attempt to withdraw our senses, but often the mind still dwells on them.
Yep.
And that is where the real challenge comes, because you might be artificially or outwardly trying to stay away, but mind is always occupied in those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So how do
That's right. We have to, we need Krishna's mercy. We can't do it on our own. Just, we do our best, right? We do our best. When you all know the story that when Mother Jashoda was trying to bind Krishna, it was always 2 fingers, the width of 2 fingers too short, the rope. And the 2 fingers one is our endeavor and the other one is Krishna's mercy. And of the 2, the more important, the more stronger one is Krishna's mercy, but we have to do our part. And Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, we can't get away from the fact that we really have to try to focus our mind on Krishna. And the best way to do that in Kali Yuga is really try to focus our mind on chanting Hare Krishna and hearing the sound vibration. And really trying to, we really have to be sattvic and peaceful and sit down and just say, okay, Krishna, this is hard. My mind wants to look at my social media feed or check my emails, but I'm going to give this time to you. And if we do that, we actually make very quick advancement. But we have to perform that little austerity, and we're going to hear about this in a few verses from now, that it is a little bit bitter in the beginning, just as sugarcane is bitter for someone who has jaundice. But we just have to, Krishna, please give me some taste. Krishna, please let me chant. I just have to chant my rounds nicely, avoid the 10 offenses. Everything else, and that's another thing, Prabhu's, is So, when we are trying to improve our sadhana, we shouldn't try to do everything. Well, okay, I'm going to read, 100 pages a day. I'm going to chant the best rounds I've ever chanted. I'm going to be totally Krishna conscious as I'm taking prasadam. Just try to do one thing at a time. And if I was going to choose one thing, generally I would suggest japa. And really try to slow down, get sattvic, maybe do a little pranayama, whatever it takes, and really get into a very prayerful mood, like a child calling out for its mother, and try to enter. And every time, and the mind's going to go all over the universe and bring it back, and then it's going to go all over the universe again, and then bring it back, and just get into the practice of bringing it back, and slowly. So you see, we have a choice. When, let's say our mind is distracted. So sometimes I think we all have this experience. Our mind is distracted and we don't even notice it's distracted. But then at some point, Krishna taps you on the shoulder and you realize you're being distracted. That's a very important point in our day-to-day life. Are we going to, Krishna told us we're not listening. Are we going to just keep thinking about that thought, or are we going to bring our mind back to Krishna's name? So that juncture, that fork in the road is very important. It may seem like nothing, right? It happens 5 times when we chant our japa. It's a very important point to show Krishna our sincerity, that when we become conscious that our mind is going, we decide to bring it back to hearing. Okay? So we should carry on. This isn't a class only on sadhana. I know these first few classes we are slowly we'll be entering a little bit more into the focusing on the purpose. But I'm very happy because I also know that Prabhupada's books are meant for applying. They're not just meant for here, they're meant for here. So I'm very happy to have these conversations, and I really like your questions. As you can see, I sometimes wait even a minute or two to see if you have any question. So for now, ask unlimited questions. All we have to do today is finish this purport, which we will do. Okay, so according to Bhagavad Gita, and then there's the very famous, beautiful verse actually, what is night for all beings is a time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. And then Prabhupada says, engagement in the devotional service of the Lord is the life and soul of the living entity. So if we were honest with ourselves, how many of us see our bhakti as our life and soul? It is the desired goal and supreme perfection of human life. One has to become confident about this. And one also has to be confident that all activities other than devotional service, such as mental speculation, fruit of work, or mystic endeavor, will never yield enduring benefit. It is so hard to do this, to keep our mind on eternity. Because, we get caught up in like I said, the flat tire with the car, and our supervisor at work is really not nice to us, and our cricket team lost yesterday, and my child broke her arm, and why is the electric bill so much higher this month than last month? All these things, and then you have to deal with them. But the trick is to somehow or other keep our eye on the fact that we are a soul and we're eternal. It's not easy. It's not easy. Nobody said, have you read anywhere where it says going back to God, it's just supposed to be, a walk in the park? It's
when we
it's
entered, that is what we were told, Prabhu.
All right, well, and it's interesting you say that at Chitta-Pradar Prabhu, because, Krishna, when we first become devotees, Krishna gives you that introductory taste, right? Like, I'm sure they do this in India, I don't remember, but, you sign up for an internet service, and it's so much per month for the first year. And then after that, after the introductory offer, then you have to pay the full price. So Krishna does that also to us. he gives us the introductory taste. And we never offend any devotee when we're new, right? We think every devotee is like a pure devotee. We think they practically all have 4 arms, you know. And it's only later that we say, oh, that one has this fault, that one has that fault. And then our taste slowly kind of goes away and we have to do some hard work. Yeah, but you're right, Achyuta Prabhu, you're right. That's what we do sometimes.
Akanda Bhajan, Akanda Bhojan. That is what you start off with.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and Krishna does say that. He says, Yena Kena Pakarena Manasa Krishna Devesha, not Krishna, but in the Shastra it says that you somehow or other attract people to Krishna. And later the regulated principles come about. Prabhupada did that. Everyone was just dancing and having a good time. Then one day he puts this piece of paper on the wall. All devotees should follow the 4 regulative principles. They're a little surprised. So will never yield any enduring benefit. Complete confidence. The problem is repeating this word confidence a lot. Complete confidence in the path of devotional service will enable one to attain the desired goal. But attempting to follow other paths will only succeed in making one restless. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, one must be, I love this word, calmly convinced that those who have given up devotional service to engage in severe austerities for other purposes are not purified in their minds, despite their advanced austerities, because they have no information of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, convinced that Krishna is God, that he is kind, that he's all beautiful, that he's all attractive, and that he's worthy of fully surrendering. But isn't this a beautiful combination of words, calmly convinced? Sometimes we could be like, like agitatedly convinced or calmly not convinced, right? But calmly convinced is such a nice combination. Prabhupada was totally calmly convinced about Krishna, 110%. He had so much faith. So, and it's hard to be calm living in a big city like Bangalore. Like I said, I remember when Bangalore in the 80s was this kind of shanty town and air-conditioned city. And I don't remember traffic jams. And now when I go there, oh my God, big changes, right? Not all of you are probably too young to remember the 80s and stuff, but
Absolutely, bro.
Yeah, big changes. And it's hard to living in a city. Prabhupada said that, man made the city, God made the country. And it is hard. So we have to really insulate ourselves by Krishna consciousness and by association of devotees. They can help us stay on the path. I didn't check here. Hare Krishna, Amal, during chanting, is it okay if we get thoughts about Krishna's childhood pastimes? This ensures we do not concentrate on any other thoughts. If that comes naturally, then that's if it just comes naturally. But we also should not forget that the name itself, the name himself is Krishna. Abhinatvam nama namino. So if we just concentrate on the sound of Krishna's name, that is sufficient because we're directly associating with Krishna. And if you want to add a little something to that, I think we said this last week also, we concentrate on the name and we try to do it feeling some kind of relationship, we're in a relationship with this person named Krishna. The Sanskrit is sambandha, right? There's a connection there, right? and what does sambandha mean? It literally means bound together, right? Some together, bandha, bound, right? So we're connected with Krishna. So if we can really try to hear the holy name, and then have that sambandha, like Prabhupada said, like a child calling out for its mother. He also said, just hear yourself chanting sincerely. That was another instruction. So yes, if Krishna's childhood pastimes come, that's nice, but we don't have to force that. We don't have to. We can be calmly convinced that if we hear Krishna's name, and it's kind of like if there was I'm not talking about a very fast river, like I'm not talking about like the Ganga in Haridwar. That's like, shoo, they have those chains that you hold on to, right? But imagine a river that goes very, very, very slowly, right? So sometimes when we first start chanting our rounds, we have to really concentrate. But after some time, it's almost like Krishna gives some real blessing, and it's almost like we're just lying on our back on the water of the river and slowly being taken down the river, very peacefully, very nicely. I mean, we still have to make our endeavor, but Krishna kind of makes the japa easier. I think we probably all have that experience sometimes. So we don't have to force ourselves. If we think of Krishna's pastimes, I mean, that's a very exalted level of Krishna consciousness. I think there was one other, Sadanand Keshava and Navina. Few examples on callousness when in the association of devotees and devotional service. Oh, no, it's not a stupid question. It's a wonderful question. We are not callous to devotees. We are loving with devotees, and we're not callous to Krishna. We're callous to trying to enjoy the material world. That's what we're callous to. Imagine Narottam Das Thakur, he's not saying Tandara Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas, Janame Janame Hoy Avilas. My only desire, he's not saying my only desire is to be callous in the association of devotees. No, he's saying my only desire is to have loving exchanges with devotees. This is, we'll talk about this again and again, but this is such an important thing. My dear Prabhus, my dear Matajis, don't offend devotees. Don't think badly about devotees. Don't control your mind. And even if you think badly, never let it come out of your mouth. Don't gossip. It's the thing that will hurt our bhakti more than anything. Krishna, if somebody had, I mean, obviously, if somebody's stealing money from the temple, we don't make them the treasurer of the temple, and we're not foolish, but we try to focus on devotees' good qualities, because that's what Krishna sees in us. Could we imagine Krishna looking at each one of us? Do you think he just focuses on, oh, well, you missed Mangal Arti yesterday, you're in big trouble? Right? No, he sees us, as struggling sadhakas who are trying to please him, and he focuses on the good. So one of the greatest tricks of Maya in the whole world is when we focus on devotees' faults. So please don't do that. Please, let's create, and I know it's already there, let's continue to create a sangha of Vaishnavas in ISKCON Bangalore that is very loving, very community focused. We help each other. If somebody's wife is ill and in the hospital, we bring that family prasadam and we check in on them. We call them up. Is everything okay? Do you need anything? We take care of each other. We're not callous. The opposite of callous. We care. And we know that when we're doing that, Krishna and our Guru and Krishna is so pleased. Right? If the father sees that one brother is taking care of a brother, the other brother who's in some problem, how pleased is the father with that son who's taking care? Right? So pleased. So, oh my God, I have a son who's such a good soul and taking care of this other son that I love so much and is having some challenges. So our Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, they'll be so pleased when we serve one another. They actually would prefer we serve one another than serve him. So we really want to be in very much try to inculcate this mood of Vaishnava Seva. And of course, Jiva Doya, going out and giving Krishna consciousness to people who are innocent and don't know about Krishna. And Nam Ruchi. Those are the three things Lord Chaitanya taught, right? Nam Ruchi, Jiva Doya, Vaishnava Seva. And we just spoke about all three in the last few minutes, right? Okay.
Prabhu, a comment on what you just said, that our Guru Maharaj and Prabhupada would be more pleased if we serve each other than we serve them. But, in our real practice, we very often see that, to just have darshan or association of our Guru Maharaj, will probably step over each other and trying to go serve him.
Yeah, well, that's also transcendental. It's like one time somebody stole Tamal Krishna Maharaj's Mahaprasadam. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj complained to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, oh, very intelligent. So yeah. The point is that serving our God brothers and God sisters is service to our Guru Maharaj. Right? Yes. But of course, we try to get Guru Maharaj's association if we can, of course, naturally. Yeah. I remember one, Trivikram Maharaj once told me, he said, we say that Vani is more important than Bapu, but if Prabhupada's book is in that room and Prabhupada himself is in that room, I'm going to go see Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Prabhu, another comment on this translation on the 7th canto, which was there, one must be calmly convinced that those who have given up devotional service to engage in severe austerities for other purposes are not purified in their minds and so on. So, how do we define this severe austerity? When it's very difficult or a very thin line to say when are austerities for devotional service and when the austerity is going in other direction, especially when you are engaged sometimes in temple services or other activities.
The key word is for other purposes. Those are the three key words. For other purposes. So we may have to do austerity sometimes in our service to Guru and Krishna. I know you in Bangalore you can't relate to this, but I used to, when I was younger, go out on book distribution, and it was sometimes like minus 20 degrees. The snow was flying horizontally. It wasn't flying vertically. It was so windy. It was flying horizontally. It was so cold. You could only stay out sometimes 15 minutes at a time. You had to run inside a shop to get warm again. But it was blissful. It was totally blissful because the purpose was to please Guru and Krishna. But austerity just for austerity's sake makes the heart hard. But austerities for pleasing Krishna makes the heart soft, because the idea is you're pleasing Krishna. So then we can do some austerities. Prabhupada would talk about fasting on Janmashtami, fasting for Ekadasi, Madhavititi Bhakti Janani. Those are some austerities that he talked about. But, to be honest, to be clear for most of us, if we can follow the 4 regulated principles, that is a great austerity in Kali Yuga. We don't have to be searching for, okay, I'm just going to eat khichdi once a day with no salt. We don't have to. We don't have to do that. The real austerity should be connected with Krishna. So we talked about the biggest austerity in one sense, focusing the mind on Krishna when we're chanting our japa. That's an austerity with bhakti. Is that all right?
Yes, and sometimes when we go for like Govardhan Parikrama, we see many Brajvasis doing a very austere parikrama by doing danvats through the whole parikrama. So, of course, no offense to the Brajvasis, but is that a very physical austerity and is it very devotional austerity?
It's a very nice austerity. You know, I mean, if they're doing it if they're doing it for the right purpose. I once did Dandavat Prikrama around Vrindavan many years ago, and only one rock, not 108 rocks. You know, like you see, one. And I think I got a lot of realizations. I mean, I was trying to do it to respect the holy Dham, but like sometimes you're on the ground and the pigs walk right by you, or some of the Brajvasi kids make fun of you, and you're paying obeisance sometimes in cow dung. It's very kind of humbling experience. So I'm very happy I did that. It was many, many years ago. I was much younger, but yeah. But I didn't do I know devotees. I didn't do Govardhan Prikrama that way. No. Oh. Okay. Anything else, Prabhus? Matajis? So let's continue. So it is further stated in the 10th canto, although mental speculators and fruitive workers, so that's Gyanis and Karmis, may perform great austerities and penances, they still fall down because they do not have information about the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotees, however, never fall down. That means, Paka, fixed up devotee. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead assures Arjuna, Kunteya pratijanihi, nambe bhakta pranashati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly, my devotees never perish. And we will spend a lot of time on that. There's some really important verses from the 926 to 934. So now here's a second chapter. Nehabi kramana sosti patyavayo navijite swapam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So in this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. And Prabhupada would say, if you finish 2% of Krishna consciousness in this life, you start your next life at 3%. And nothing can ultimately take away whatever advancement, but Vaishnava aparads can cover it. That's why I keep on saying we don't want to offend Vaishnavas. We still have a little to go, so I should keep reading. Devotional service is so pure and perfect that once it has begun, one is forcibly dragged to ultimate success. That's inspiring. Sometimes a person will give up his ordinary material engagements and out of sentiment take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and thus begin the preliminary execution of devotional service. Even if such an immature devotee falls down, there's no loss on his part. On the other hand, what is the gain if one who executes the prescribed duties according to his varna and ashram but does not take to devotional service? Although a fallen devotee may take his next birth in a low family, his devotional service will nonetheless resume from where it left off. Devotional service is hoituki apratiyata. It is not the effect of any mundane cause, nor can it be terminated by any mundane cause or permanently curtailed by any material interruption. Therefore, a devotee should be confident about his engagement and should not be very interested in the activities of karmis, gyanis, and yogis. So this has, that kind of, what we just read, for me, it was always very inspiring for me when I used to go out and sell books or go out on Nagar Sankirtan, because Prabhupada said, even if they don't buy the book, but even if they touch it, they make advancement. So that's the beginning of a little advancement that will never be lost. What if, or if they hear the Harinam party, right? Or we give them some prasadam. They've started on their path and they will be, what did Prabhupada say? They will be forcibly dragged to ultimate success. So of course we'd like the people to fully take the Krishna consciousness, but even we planted a little seed in their heart by coming in touch with Krishna consciousness, prasadam, Prabhupada's books, the holy name, coming to the temple for darshan, etc. It should be very inspiring also to us that whatever we do, it never gets lost. Any questions or comments on that point about nothing being lost in devotional service? It goes into our eternal bank account.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Mm-hmm.
This statement here, sometimes a person will give up his ordinary material engagement and out of sentiment take shelter of lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I have a question related to that. When you're actually working and practicing Krishna consciousness, you're almost running on two tracks of a train, parallel tracks. So at some point in time, you got to give up that material track and get into the spiritual track, if I have to say. So how do you make that distinction? Because if you have to run both successfully, you got to literally maintain duality. So in the office, you behave in one particular way. In the spiritual, it's like opposite behaviors which you normally have to develop, and that sort of in the long run may have an impediment on the way you want to really practice bhakti. So I would like to hear from you, Prabhu. What are some practical tips to?
Well, there's two things. Prabhupada acknowledged this two lifestyles. I think I mentioned this last week, where he said we should be like a lion on the chase and a lamb at home. So he recognized the two different mindsets. And so we may have to be a lion sometimes, right, in the office. Hopefully not all the time, but we have to, business is business, right? And if you want to be successful, you have to really be focused. And then we want to, that's why I even said, sometimes we should come home at night, take bath, kind of like wash, it's almost like a ritualistic washing of whatever we had to do at work, put on some nice, maybe put on dhoti kurta, even put on some tilak, just to kind of know, okay, that part of my day is over. This part of my evening is beginning, like that. And we do sometimes have to compartmentalize. Even as a preacher, when I was in India, so if I was, dealing with the judges in the courts, I speak in a certain way, right? And when I'm, speaking at, distributing prasadam in a Brijbasi village, is speaking in a very different way. So we become, hopefully we become expert at adjusting things according to time, place, and circumstance. Now, the other answer to your question, eventually, Achyuta, obviously not now in your life, but eventually there's retirement. And that's when Prabhupada even writes in the first canto, he said, you can go to Vrindavan and study the 6 Goswami literature. He said that in the first canto, but we can dedicate our time. So there's different times in our life, right? And we focus on different times in our life. That's why I'm happy to see that, well, it's nice sometimes when devotees get married at a relatively young age. I'm not talking about 12 years old like in Prabhupada's time, but they have children relatively young. The reason I say that is by the time they're 45 or 50, the children are growing up, right? And then they still have their health and vitality, and they can do so much more service, especially if your child becomes successful in business, then they can do the business and maintain you. That's my hope for my son. But, you know, because most of us, you know, I didn't get married till I was 32 or something like that. At least 30 something, yeah. And that was the thing in this. I thought for many years I was just going to be a brahmachari my whole life, but that wasn't Krishna's arrangement for me. Anyway, that you see the point I'm making, that in old age we may have more opportunity also. So there's a few things: how to deal with the situation now, and then slowly how to deal with it differently. And I know this is not practical for everyone, but you know, the Prabhupada kind of liked the Marwari idea that you own your own business. You train up your children from the time they're like 6 years old to take it over, and then as you get older, you know, they start seeing that. I've seen that for many generations in Vrindavan, especially like a place like Ganga Prasad where we buy our clothing. And now I think even now the grandchildren are, you know, selling the cloth. I knew when the grandfather was in charge of everything. Now he just kind of sits there. Of course, he's not a sadhaka, probably, but he is a Brijbasi. Is that all right, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Prabhu, I have a doubt, Prabhu.
You have a
The
doubt?
sentence, yeah. Prabhu, the sentence, therefore, a devotee should be confident about his engagement and should not be very interested in the activities of the karmis, jnanis, and yogis.
Right.
Prabhu, I can understand that we should not be interested in the activities of the karmis. But I don't understand why we should not be interested in the activities of the jnanis and yogis who are also engaged in self-realization, understanding Krishna consciousness, and ultimately reach the lotus feet of Lord. They are also engaged in that. But is it because the path is a little difficult? We are discouraged from being interested in the activities of jnanis and yogis?
Very good question. Excellent question. So, the Gyanis, sometimes their heart can be, like I said, when you perform austerities like Gyanis often do, their heart can get quite hard instead of very soft. And Gyanis sometimes are, and often are, can become Mayavadis. And a Mayavadi is a person who doesn't accept that Krishna's body is eternal. So they look at Krishna and they say above Krishna is Brahman, even though Krishna says in the Gita, Brahmano hi pratisht aham. He says, I am the basis of Brahman. And so it can be very insulting to God, to Krishna, to say, no, he has no ears, he can't hear, he has no eyes, he can't see, he has no mouth, he can't speak. So basically they're saying that Krishna is dumb and deaf, right? And that's enough. And we as devotees don't ever want to think of Krishna. We think that Angani Yasha Sakalendriya Vrita, that Krishna, his senses are interchangeable, and he can eat with his eye. You know, he's the owner of the sense. He's the origin of all senses. So Gani's association can be very, very bad for our bhakti, because they ultimately think that they are God, and therefore there's no bhakti. If you know if the subject and the object are the same, there's no bhakti. But bhakti means two. Means three actually. The Bhagavan, the Bhakta, and the relationship, which is bhakti. And yogis are transcendentalists, and they meditate on the super soul in their heart. Sometimes they can get mystic powers. They can actually get these different cities, and sometimes those cities distract them from their pursuit of self-realization. So when we study Nectar of Devotion, we'll be studying this very important verse on Yabhilashita Sunyam Jnana Karma Anavritam, that pure bhakti Pure devotion is free from impersonal gyanis, free from karmis who just, like you said, just want to enjoy this world, and free from the potential distractions of the yogis. And they just approach God, Krishna, with love. So that's the reason, in a nutshell.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let us finish this this verse. And thank you for that wonderful. You're all asking such wonderful questions. Just so you know, it's inspiring to a teacher when there's good questions and good comments. And I'll tell you what's not inspiring to a teacher. The teacher's giving you a class and someone asks a question that has nothing to do with the class. And it's like, have you been listening? Okay. There are certainly many good qualities among fruitive actors, philosophical speculators, and mystic yogis. So here's also the answer to your question, Prabhu. So Prabhupada's saying, yes, there's good qualities amongst those people, yes. But all good qualities automatically develop in the character of a devotee. No extraneous endeavor is needed, as confirmed in this very famous verse, 5:18-12. Yes, the bhaktir bhagavati akinchana. All the good qualities of the demigods progressively become manifest in one who has developed pure devotional service. Because the devotee is not interested in any material activity, he does not become materially contaminated. He is immediately situated on the platform of transcendental life. However, one who engages in mundane activity, be he a so-called Gyani, Yogi, Karmi, philanthropist, nationalist, or whatever, cannot attain the highest state of Mahatma. He remains Duratma, or cripple-minded. According to Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanas tumam parta, daivim prakritim asrita, bhajantyananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Since all the devotees of the Lord are under the protection of the Supreme Potency, they should not deviate from the path of devotional service and take to the path of Karmi, Gyani, or Yogi. This is called Utsaha Nishtaya Dharyat Tat Karma Pravartana, enthusiastically executing the regulative activities of devotional service with patience and confidence. And this way one can advance in devotional service without hindrance. Okay, let's see, look at the chat. Oh, just thank you. Amazing explanation of Gyani. Thank you, Rasa Sindhu Giri Hari Prabhu. Any last questions or comments? So I know some of you have been asking about the exam and things like that. So let's see, Achyuta Prabhu, do you know the latest? Have you been following the email thread that we've been having?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Premadatta Prabhu.
Is he here?
Yeah, he is here.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
So, yes, Prabhu. So I had discussion with Prem Tarangni Mataji. So I will be compiling all the process and sending it to the group maybe sometime this week, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prem Datta Prabhu. I really appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, she's very helpful. She's very intelligent.
Oh yeah, she was very helpful, and she was very accommodating. She immediately took up the call and clarified. So
very good, very good. Okay, so it is not impossible to get a Bhakti Shastri degree. It is very, very possible. Don't be in anxiety. Don't be in anxiety. Little anxiety is good. Big anxiety is bad. Even when you're giving a Bhagavatam class, a little anxiety in the beginning is actually good. It makes you sharp. But if you're in too much anxiety, then you freeze. Yeah. One time I was many years ago, I was much younger devotee. I was giving Bhagavatam class in Vrindavan, and in walks Satsvarup Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and they sit down right in front of me, and I just kind of freeze. You know, with their dundas, and everything. It was very scary. So anyway, a little anxiety is good, but don't be, it's not that hard. Prabhupada said we should learn Bhagavad Gita like the Christians know their Bible. Sometimes you'll meet a Christian who knows the Bible inside and out, up and down. And so he said it's only 700 verses. We can know the Bhagavad Gita very well. So I'm sure you'll do wonderfully on this. And I really look forward to this every week. I think, oh, very good. It's Saturday morning in India. I get to talk to these wonderful Vaishnavas about the Upadekshamrita. It's very inspiring. We have a few minutes. So Murari Madhava Prabhu says, if someone becomes devotee, will he be enriched with mystic power also, though he is not interested? In India, bhakti is measured with one's mystic powers. Sometimes a devotee may get some powers if Krishna wants, but the devotee doesn't want. He doesn't want to get distracted. So, as you said, sometimes in India people think like that. So Prabhupada was asked that question one time. He's saying, do you have any mystic powers? Do you have any special powers? Do you have special Shakti? And Prabhupada pointed to his disciples and he said, this is my Shakti. That they were all doing this nonsense and that nonsense, and now they're all following regulated principles, chanting Hare Krishna and going back to Godhead. So that is my mystic power. So the greatest power in the world, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tara Parvartana. This was actually spoken by Vallabhacharya when he saw Lord Chaitanya. He said that unless one is empowered by Krishna, he cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement. So that's our Shakti, and that's Prabhupada's Shakti. Not some, be able to produce some ashes or some gold or this or that. That's magic more than anything. Is that okay, Murari Madhava Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bhaktivinoda Thakur once said, you can tell a Vaishnava by how many others he's introduced Krishna consciousness to. That is Mahashakti. Prabhupada even said you have to sometimes spill 200 gallons of blood to make one person a devotee. And we all know what it's like, right? Someone comes and they have so many misconceptions, and why this, and why not the demigods, and why not garlic and onions, and why. And we have to very patiently answer their questions and keep feeding them prasadam. That was definitely in America in the early days, the one way you could keep someone a devotee is you just, every time they wanted to leave Krishna consciousness, give them unlimited sweets. Okay, I'll stay a little longer. Like that. So thank you very, very much for your association, Prabhus and Matajis. And by Krishna, now we're adjusting the time by a half hour next week. Is that right, Achyuta Prabhu?
Absolutely, Prabhu. That is one of the most important announcement we wanted to make. That following next week, next Saturday, which is Friday for you, Prabhu, in Washington, D.C., we will advance the class by half an hour. So I request humbly all the devotees that we be ready for the class from 5:30 a.m. Indian time.
Is that okay, Prabhus? Can you still do this?
Prabhus
Yes,
and Matajis, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhu.
Maybe
Yes, Prabhu.
raise of hands or raise of voice.
All right.
Yeah, definitely. It's okay with us.
Acha, okay.
Unfortunately,
very
we don't
kind
have
of
a
you.
choice.
It's very kind of you, because then it'll end at 9:30. Otherwise, it ends at 10 at night, and then it gets late for me. I'm a really early to bed person as much as possible. Okay.
And thank
Hare
you so much for
Krishna, Vansha
accommodating.
Kalpa Trubhyascha, Kripa
Kripa
Sindhubhyevacha,
Sindhubhyevacha,
Patitanam
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo,
Vaishnavebhyo.
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. If you devotees, if I can request you to continue for another couple of minutes. We have a few announcements. So you will receive the assignment for text 3, most likely later today or first thing tomorrow. So please do complete those assignments in a timely way. The second thing is the homework for next week will be reading text 4. His Grace Vraj Vihari Prabhu will be starting with text 4. And like we mentioned that the timing for next class onwards, it will start from 5:30 a.m. So please bear with us. We had to accommodate both sides, and Vraj Vihari Prabhu has been very, very accommodative. Normally, they all go to sleep early because they also get up to do their sadhana and carry out their regular activities. So we sort of got a middle path, which is half an hour both ways. So 5:30 a.m. I hope you all can take that austerity and attend the classes, and let's try and be there at least 3 or 4 minutes earlier than the start time. And I know this curious question on what the exam format is going to be. Premdatta Prabhu has almost finalized with talking to Her Grace Prema Tarangini Mataji, who is running this Bhakti Shastri program for the temple in Washington, D.C. So we are looking at similar format. And like Vraj Vihari Prabhu said, it is not scary. It is quite straightforward. So we'll come up with the format and also provide all the details. Hopefully by next week. I can't see Premdatta Prabhu here. I don't want to commit on his behalf, but we will keep you all posted. There are different set of questions. One is open book, one is closed book, and then what about memorizing shlokas and things. So we will give you those details well in advance. Sham Kundu Prabhu, you had been following up, I know, so please bear with us. I'm very apologetic for not providing those details at the earliest, so please bear with us. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what we had. Rasa Sindhu Prabhu, anything you want to add?
No, Prabhu, nothing from my side.
Okay, let us chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra once and close this session. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patient listening.
Hare
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
Hare
Thank you very
Krishna.
much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.